Aloha friends! So this is actually a project I did with my son, Button Bear. He had found a stick at a local park and I just had him start by taking the main bark off of the stick with just an average vegetable peeler that I found on Amazon. And I just made sure that he was always keeping it away from his body and going in a downward motion. I then went and proceeded to remove the remainder of the bark off with this beaver craft knife, whittling knife that I found also on Amazon, and it worked out pretty well. That's a picture there of the layers that I got off. So then I proceeded to carve a little bit of indented handle where I was going to put the leather, and I used 100, 150, and 220 grit sandpaper, all-purpose sandpaper that I found at a local store, and I just cut those down to a more manageable size. And I started with the 100, made sure all the dust was off, went to the 150, made sure all the dust was off, and then went with the 220. I then took a pencil and I created a spiral design around, and then I took and cut one direction on one side of the line to the line in a downward motion away from myself. And I did that all around the spiral design that I'd created with the pencil. And then I turned the stick over and I then continued that same cutting motion. But now I was on the other side of the line, and that's how you create that nice indented spiral design. And it was a little, it did have some inconsistencies, so I definitely went back over that design several times to try and clean it up a little bit, as you can see here, and just round it out, widen it a bit, deepen it a bit, until I got it to a point that looked pretty roughly good. And then what I did was I took an 1/8 inch dowel that I had in our craft bin that we used for homemade stick puppets, shadow puppets, and I kind of rolled the sandpaper around that to form it around the dowel so that it would fit right into the groove of the spiral. And again, I started with the 100 grit, the more dense, thicker grit. And once I did that 100 grit all around the spiral, I proceeded with the 150 grit and then the 220 grit to finish off. I then applied boiled linseed oil, and this I also got on Amazon, surprise, surprise. You want to look at the instructions on the back. They had me use a lint-free cloth to apply it, and ideally applying it in the direction of the grain, but I kind of just wiped it all over and it seemed to work out good. You can see here that you can see a little bit better that where I carved the handle for the leather to go. So I just made sure that I got it in all of the crevices and cracks and spirals and just got it covered up really well. You also want to be careful about what you do with the rags. You want to wash them out, rinse them out, and let them dry, because they can just spontaneously combust if left in a pile. And I let this sit overnight, just leaning up against the wall to dry. And then the next day I applied another coat, let that dry overnight, and then I applied a third and final coat of the boiled linseed oil to finish it up. So once it was all nice and moisturized and dried out from that. I then applied what I used was some tennis racket leather. And this just comes in a little pack, single pack. Again, bought from Amazon. And what I like about it is it's really pliable, it's really soft, and it already comes pre-backed with adhesive. And so all you have to do is just remove that little strip that covers the adhesive as you apply it. And I just made sure that I applied it with some good amount of tension as I went around, just so that it would adhere nicely to itself. And then I kind of tested where I wanted to have that last cut hidden so that it wouldn't show. And then I just used some craft scissors. These might be little pruning shears for leaves and things. But yeah, I ended up, as you can see, changing my cut once I played around with it a little bit. And then I just pulled it tautly and then kind of burnished it on. But to prevent it from getting peeled back with use, I then cut some jute. And the length of jute that you use is totally up to you. I decided I wanted to hang some fun beads on this, so I kind of left it a little long. But I cut 3 strands and I kind of crossed them through each other so that when I wrapped it back around, I just got that nice clean finish of 6 strands kind of laying right on top of each other. Oh, and I think I may have forgotten to mention that you want to make sure that your stick is dry before you start the carving process. And I was just supporting it by holding it between my legs at this point. And then I just did a square knot on it to finish it up there, pulling it pretty tight, just so that I could cover that piece of that last piece of cut leather up. I then added some beads on it and cut the strings at various lengths. And this was the finished product. It actually ended up turning out a lot nicer than I thought it was going to, since it was my first ever whittling project. So I was pretty happy with it. And it was a gift for my son. So a lot of fun to be able to work on it together. So it'll definitely become a keepsake, I'm sure. And Button Bear loved his stick. He couldn't wait to use it. Looking forward to lots of outdoor adventures. And here's our family of walking sticks. The one on the left I made for my husband. I wood burned a cross and some Celtic designs lower down on the stick and wrapped the leather with some black hemp. The one in the middle is my son's. And on the right, I hot glued clear quartz crystal to the top along with some crow feathers that we found on our family outdoor adventures and wrapped the leather with black hemp for me. So if you decide to create your own walking stick, just have fun with it and make it your own. The design possibilities are endless. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe. Shalom. God bless and live bright.